Ashara was raised to be trusted with silence. Not the quiet of obedience. Not the quiet of fear. The older kind. The kind that keeps names alive by never speaking them aloud. In Kwenara, breath is law. Memory is currency. And history is not written. It is kept alive through bodies trained to carry it. Ashara has spent her life learning which truths must never be spoken, which memories must be sealed, and which flames are meant only to be watched, never fed. But something in her has always refused to stay contained. Not loudly. Not rebelliously. Just, persistently. A hesitation in the ritual chant. A memory that surfaces where none should exist. A heat that does not behave like fire. She is told it is nothing. She is told it is discipline. She is told it is loyalty. Until the day the archive breathes back. When Ashara is summoned into the oldest chambers beneath Veilmark, she expects another test. Another rite designed to measure obedience. Another trial proving she can carry the Empire's silence without breaking. Instead, she finds something older than law. Something older than the throne. And something that seems to recognize her long before she recognizes it. The land remembers differently than the courts do. The old systems whisper through bone, ash, and breath. And when Ashara is forced to sit where memory itself has cracked open, she begins to understand that silence was never neutral, it was structural. She was not trained to forget. She was trained to hold. And now something is asking to be released. The first fracture is small. A shard that should have burned away. A voice that doesn't use sound. A memory that does not belong to her, and yet settles inside her bones like recognition. From that moment, the boundaries between inheritance and fabrication begin to blur. The Empire teaches that history is sacred. Immutable. Preserved through perfect transmission. But the deeper Ashara moves into the archive systems, the bone knots, the sealed scrolls, the living breath records, the more she senses something wrong beneath the preservation. Not decay. Not corruption. Editing. Someone, somewhere, has been rewriting what Kwenara believes is permanent. And the deeper Ashara listens, the more she suspects something even more dangerous. Not that history was changed, but that it was changed before she was born. The discovery does not arrive as proof. It arrives as contradiction. Fragments of chant surfacing where none were recorded. Names that react to her presence. Memory structures that behave as if she is both authorized and forbidden. Even her own claim to inheritance begins to feel unstable. Because if the archive can be rewritten, then inheritance can be engineered. And if inheritance can be engineered, then identity can be constructed. And if identity can be constructed, then who was Ashara supposed to be? The political structure around her begins to tighten as whispers spread. The tribunal watches more closely. The ritual systems begin responding to her unpredictably. Flames dim instead of rise, chants fracture midverse, and sealed chambers react to her breath before she touches them. She is not being rejected. She is being recognized incorrectly. And somewhere beneath the recorded histories of queens, matriarchs, and councils, there are older voices. Voices that do not appear in any official archive. Voices that speak not through documents, but through interruption. Through fracture. Through silence that is too intentional to be empty. The deeper Ashara moves, the more she realizes something terrifying. The Empire does not only control memory. It controls which versions of memory are allowed to survive. And if that is true, then the past is not sacred. It is curated. Her mother's warnings about names begin to take on new meaning. The rituals that once felt protective begin to feel selective. And the more Ashara listens to the land itself, to the way breath moves through bone architecture, through ash sites, through abandoned chant halls, the more she senses something waiting for her to do something no heir was ever meant to do. Not rule. Not inherit. But remember incorrectly. The emotional cost begins to surface quietly. If she is wrong, she risks destabilizing everything Kwenara believes holds it together. If she is right, then the empire she is sworn to protect may have been built on deliberate erasure, not of enemies, but of truths that made power unstable. And worst of all, if the archive has already been edited once, then it can be edited again. Possibly by someone who needed her alive for it to work. Possibly by someone who needed her to believe she chose this path. Possibly by someone who needed her to inherit something that was never meant to belong to her in the first place. As the first 3 chapters unfold, Ashara does not gain clarity. She gains dissonance. The more she learns, the less stable the categories of loyalty, inheritance, and memory become. The more she listens, the more she realizes silence is not absence, it is architecture. And architecture can be redesigned. But redesigning it may cost more than power. It may cost belonging. It may cost lineage. It may cost the difference between being remembered and being authored. Because somewhere beneath the empire's oldest rites, there is evidence that someone did not just preserve history. Someone curated which future was allowed to exist. And the archive may not be asking Ashara to protect it. It may be asking her to finish what someone else started.